the Labour Party's used all its calls, but I'm going to call Kelvin Davis.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So the Labour Party's used all its calls. It was Kelvin Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my colleague Nanaia Mahuta and Pita Praone also both made some very relevant points. And the point I want to pick up on first is the point about the consultation around the Kermadec Sanctuary. Nanaia was slightly wrong. There was consultation before it, before the announcement was made. It was a good 10 minutes, I think. I think Ngāti Kuri and Te Aupōuri had 10 minutes to ponder whether or not they actually agree with the Kermadec proposal. And that is this national government, that's their idea of consultation. And of course it makes me wonder when we have a minister saying it's great to be at the coffee table, is where was the consultation with the minister? Where was the consultation with the minister when that decision around the Kermadec Island was made? I mean, what is the point of being a Minister of Māori Development sitting around the coffee table when you only get, well, you find out basically at the same time as the rest of the world that something as substantial as the Kermadec concept was going to be announced. That, to me, Mr. Speaker, shows the disregard that the National Party have for their Māori caucus, i.e. the Māori Party. I also take issue with Marama Fox's comments towards Helen Clark last week. Now, she raised 3 points. One was the foreshore and seabed issue. One was the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People issue. The other was the Tūhoe issue. And I have to admit the foreshore and seabed issue wasn't Labour's finest hour. We've got to take that one on the chin. However, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, Labour took a principled stance. They said we cannot endorse that declaration if we cannot honour all of the clauses in that Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. And so Labour didn't sign it. Then contrast that to the national government and the Māori Party who went over to New York, made a big issue about signing that declaration, and yet they cannot honour all the clauses. That, in my opinion, is not a very principled stance to take whatsoever, and I admire Helen Clark for taking the criticism on the chin for not signing it, but she did it from a very principled stance. Contrast that to the national government, the Māori Party, who signed it but cannot and will not honour it. One of those clauses basically says that Indigenous people are entitled to all of their lands that they've traditionally had. Well, that means Māori will get every single acre back in New Zealand. Well, we know that is not going to happen. And Helen Clark wanted to be able to negotiate so that there was something that we could honour and could sign, but of course Labour lost the election, the national government comes in, and I'm waiting. On behalf of all Māori in New Zealand, I'm waiting for every single acre of land to be returned to us. I'm waiting, but I think I will be waiting in vain. Then there was the Tūhoe raids. Now, we didn't like what we saw in the Tūhoe raids, but there's a rumour floating around, and I was interviewed on a Māori radio station saying, oh, we've got our source. That terrorism group was run out of Helen Clark's office. I said, no, that's not right. A Prime Minister, a Member of Parliament, cannot direct the police in their operations. Oh, no, we've got our source. Well, I wonder if that source was Marama Fox and Tuarua Flappel. A reliable source, all right. It is an absolute lie, an invention, a creation that terrorism, that the police, that raid on Tūhoe was organised out of the then Prime Minister's office. It is absolutely ridiculous that they cannot do anything, members of Parliament cannot do anything to direct the police in their operations. In fact, Annette King was telling me, because I asked her about it, I said, what happened at that time? She said, that's ridiculous. The police told them that they had intel information. They didn't say where from, who were the people involved, what part of the country it was in. They had no idea other than the police had some intel. Helen Clark asked, is the Terrorism Act the most appropriate act to conduct this operation under. The Solicitor General at the time sat there and said, yes, it was the most appropriate act. That night they saw what was going down in Tūhoi. They were, the Labour government at the time were absolutely dumbfounded by it. And 3 weeks later, the Solicitor General goes and reneges that advice.
The Honourable Te Reo Flavel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.